name is Steve Vogel. I'm the Development Director with School Choice Arizona. We're very excited to have you guys today. I know that you're really pumped about being here on a Friday afternoon to learn about tax credits, but it'll only take a couple hours of your time, so no problem. We'll kind of fly through it as quickly as we can. In 1997, the state of Arizona decided that they would allow individuals to give up to a certain amount of their state tax dollars and receive it all back dollar for dollar as a tax credit. So this is not where somebody has to give money and they get a little bit back from the federal deduction or whatever. This is a dollar for dollar credit that is available for individuals that live in the state of Arizona. And we'll talk about specifically what those maximums are and kind of how that works. But then in 2006, we were then introduced to the corporate option, where a corporation in the state of Arizona can give up to 100% of their state tax liability and also receive it back as a dollar for dollar tax credit. So this is a great opportunity for kids to be able to have a choice of attending private school or an amazing school like Autism Academy. So we kind of wanted to just take a few minutes and introduce you guys to exactly what this program looks like, what it means for you and your students, and how you can best take advantage of the opportunities that are there. Before we jump into the presentation though, if you guys wouldn't mind opening up your folders, I'd like to introduce you to the materials that are in there. I'm going to jump through it really fast because we will cover the materials in the presentation itself, but I just want you to know what's in your packet. The first thing on the right-hand side of your packet, you'll see a lot of little leaflets. The first one is your donation brochure. This is where a student, or if you're soliciting donations, anybody who's looking for a donor, or if you're going to make a donation, you need to fill this form out. You'll notice that you can recommend a specific student and the school. At the very least, make sure that you have all of these filled out with Autism Academy on it, so that we make sure that the proper credit is going to the proper organization. There's also what we call our facts brochure, FAQ brochure. This just has basic questions that we've run into over and over again from people that don't understand what the tax credit is, but they kind of just, they'll ask you different questions. One of the questions is, well, if I give my money to you, I don't want to affect public schools, because they're afraid that if their money doesn't go to the state, that their money, that somehow public schools are going to be affected by that. That honestly couldn't be farther from the truth. It actually saves the state money to not have a child in a state school. The latest numbers that we know, it's about $9,000, a little over $9,000 per student to be in a state-funded public school. And the average scholarship and the tax credit scholarship is about $2,700. So you're saving about $6,300 or $5,300 to the state by not having that student in public school. So that's just one of the questions that you might get asked, and this brochure will answer most of those questions. One thing that I do want to tell you is that all of this stuff is free. Okay, so we will provide it to the school as much as you want. If you want to walk around with 100 of these donation brochures to hand out to everyone that you know, they're free. We will get you as many as you like, as long as you'll use them. Okay. The next brochure is about the corporate tax credit. If you know somebody that is an S corporation or a C corporation here in the state of Arizona, please share this information with them, because they can literally give millions of dollars. We have donors that give $3–4 million to this program, and they get it all back as a dollar for dollar tax credit. So it's an amazing opportunity for companies to be able to get involved with this program also. This form is your payroll withholdings form, and again, we'll talk about these more in depth, but just want you to know this kind of will answer all of your questions. If you had questions, you probably won't, because I'm going to do such a good job of explaining it that you won't, but if you did, there are some information there on the corporate, or on the payroll withholdings. The next one is the out-of-state donor brochure. So obviously, if your grandparents or parents live out of state, they can give to this program. They just can't take the credit as a tax credit because they don't live in the state of Arizona. Because School Choice Arizona is a 501c3, they can recommend a student, make a donation to us. we can then in turn get the money to the school and they can take it as a federal deduction. If they sent the money directly for a student's tuition here, it would not be deductible, but because they do it through us, and technically we can't guarantee recommendations, which I'll talk a little bit more in a minute, it is a deductible expense for them, or a deductible donation. The last thing here is, if you know a company, again, this explains the opportunity in a little more depth. So, you know, like I said, if you know somebody who works for a corporation or owns a corporation, please get one of these in their hands and talk to them about this amazing school that you work at. On the left side of your folder, this one is what I think is the most important for parents. This talks about the 4 tax credits that are available. There's 2 individual tax credits, which is the individual and the switcher. And then on the back talks about the corporate with the low income and also with the disabled displaced, or Lexi's law. And it tells you what the student has to do to be able to qualify for each specific tax credit. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Believe it or not, a lot of people don't know what they pay in taxes. They're like, you know what, I get a refund every year. I don't know. In your packet is the forms. If somebody says, I don't know what my tax liability is, you can show them one of these forms. It tells them exactly where to go on the form to be able to tell what their tax liability is. Because again, just because they're getting a refund, they're probably not getting a refund because the state of Arizona loves them. It's because they've overpaid their taxes. And so they do still have a tax liability, and we'll explain a little bit the difference between what a tax liability is and how all of that works. One of the cool things that School Choice Arizona has done is we've created letters for you to be able to communicate this opportunity to your friends, family, people that you do business with. You know, you guys are all really smart people, but you're very busy, and to expect you to craft a letter to be able to send out to people, we don't want you to have to do that. So this letter is, you can plagiarize it, copy and paste it, do whatever you want with it, but this just is a good example of something that you can use to be able to communicate with people. Obviously, getting in front of somebody and speaking to them directly is the best way to do this, but if you're like, man, I barely know that person, I'm not going to ask them for money to their face, you can send these as an email, send them as a letter, whatever you want to do, but those things have already been created for you. This other one is talking about the withholdings and what your tax, basically what your paycheck would look like if you participate in the withholdings program. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more. Don't glance over this. This is, as far as I'm concerned, for this meeting right here, this is the most important thing that we're going to talk about, because this is an amazing opportunity for you guys to pour money back into the school that you work for without it costing you anything. And so don't lose this paper, because it's going to be important in a minute. This one is talking about if you are ready to sign up for the payroll withholdings, which it's all set and ready to go. You just have to commit to say, yes, I want to do it. This is the form that you're going to fill out. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. And I think that is all the papers that are in there. So let's jump right into the presentation. If you'll just kind of follow along with me with the slide presentation. I introduced you to School Choice Arizona. In 1997, like I said, this tax credit opportunity was introduced. This particular piece of legislation has been one of the most talked about, challenged pieces of legislation ever in the state of Arizona, because it's an amazing opportunity for people to create options for their students where they're going to attend school. And this actually was argued all the way up to the Supreme Court, believe it or not, the U.S. Supreme Court, not the state Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court. And the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that this is a legal thing, that people can take these tax credits and the deduction. So that has already been challenged, and you're good to go there. So you ask, why do we exist? Well, we exist to be able to make private school an option for students. We realize that parents don't always have options. You know, their public school might be their only option. It may not be a great option. But let's be honest, there is a cost to sending a child to private school. And so this legislation was brought along so that people could come alongside families that really wanted to make a difference in their children by providing private school education. And so that's why this was created. Like we talked about, there's 4 tax credits that are available. There's the original and the switcher tax credit for individuals, and then there is the low income and the disabled displaced for the corporate. We believe that it's always easier to retain a student than it is to bring in a new one. And so we don't want you guys losing students because it becomes too big of a financial burden on the families. And so this is why we want to support as best as we can so that we can bring monies in for you guys to be able to keep your kids here. And then if you do really well on it, you go out and recruit kids because we've got scholarship monies that are available for these families to be able to come. So how does it work? Basically, what you do is you go to an individual and you solicit a donation. You ask them, you know, would you be willing to support my school? This is what we do. This is how important it is to these students. And would you please consider making a donation? And you talk to them about the tax credit and that you're not asking them to invest anything above and beyond what they've already spent. This money is going somewhere. It's either going to go to the state or it's going to come to School Choice Arizona and then in turn help your school with tuition for kids. So once the donor agrees, they're like, yeah, this makes really good sense. I want to do this. Then they will fill out the form. They'll make their donation to School Choice Arizona. Then School Choice Arizona gives them a receipt. And then when they go in to file their taxes, if they have somebody that does their taxes or if they do it themselves, they've now got the receipt for the donation that they've made, and they can take the tax credit. We're going to talk about this a little bit more with the withholdings, but I don't want to skip over this. So even if this person doesn't really like you that much, and they don't really care about your school that much, you can still get them to make a donation because this makes financial sense. Because what other opportunities do you have to make a donation somewhere and actually make money on your donation? You say, well, how do I make money? Well, one, you're getting it all back in your state taxes. So I've donated $2,100. I'm getting all $2,100 back. But now I can take it as a federal deduction on my federal income taxes. So depending on what my tax liability is and what tax bracket I'm in, I'm going to get a percentage of that money back from the federal government also. And so now I'm a pretty smart guy because I've now made money on an investment that, you know what, I'm also helping kids. It makes me feel good. So this is a good opportunity for folks. So you say, what is a tax credit? Well, a tax credit is where you get the money back dollar for dollar. It's not a percentage. It's a 100% up to what the cap is. And if you look here on the slide, if you can't see it, I'm sorry, for the individual, a single taxpayer can give almost $1,100 and get it all back dollar for dollar. A married filing jointly can give over $2,100 and get it back dollar for dollar. One of the things that you need to realize too is that, say, I don't really know what my tax liability is, okay, but I think I know because last year I kind of know what that one is. I don't know whether I'm going to get my year-end bonus, so I'm not really sure what my liability is going to be this year, but I'm willing to make the donation. So say I make a donation for $2,000 and my tax liability comes back as $1,500. I don't lose that $500 credit. I just need to roll it over for the next year. And that credit rolls over for up to 5 years. So I'm virtually at no risk of losing that credit as long as I use it in the upcoming years. So that's important information to know. So what is a state tax liability? It's money that you owe the state. You guys all have jobs here. Most of us, if you make any money in the state of Arizona, you have some type of a state tax liability. And so that's what it is. It's money that you owe the state because of being a good contributing working person in the state of Arizona. We talked about where to find what your tax liability is. It is on the Form 140, which is the next slide. You can see on what line it's highlighted, which line you can find what your state tax liability is. You don't want to go to the end and find out, well, what did I pay or what do I get back? That's irrelevant to this program. It's what you paid. Then if you go to the next slide, you'll see that if you do your own taxes, then these are the forms that you have to submit to be able to take the credit. If you have somebody that does your taxes, they know all about this. It's easy. This program is so easy that if you do TurboTax or any type of online tax software, it'll ask you, it'll say, did you make a donation to a charitable tax credit organization? You select yes, and then it's going to ask you, well, which one, because there's a few that are available here in the state of Arizona. It's not just the private school tax credit. There's a foster care. There's a charitable organization. There's several others. I'm skipping my mind, and I'd leave one out. So, but there's others that that you can take advantage of also. The thing that you need to know with that one is, like, say for public school, they can only donate $400. That's the max that you can give to a public school. So if somebody says, well, I already gave to the public school tax credit, well, if their tax liability is more than $400, they can give to the private one also. In fact, they can take advantage of all of the tax credits as long as they have enough of a tax liability to do it. You can go to the Form 323. This is just it tells you what you have to fill out in order to be able to submit this. So the next slide is, what is a refund versus a tax credit? So like I said, some people will come to you and they'll say, well, you know what, I already get a refund. I'm sorry, I can't participate in this program. Well, you know what, you probably can. There are a few exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, because you're getting a refund, it's because there's been too much money taken out of your paycheck all year, and now you're getting it back. And so the thing to know on this is that just because you get a refund doesn't mean that you're not going to get that money back. So if I normally get a $1,000 refund on my state income tax and I make the $2,100 max donation, now my money that I'm getting back from the state is now going to be $3,100 instead of the $1,000. Everybody understand that? Does that make sense? Yes? Okay, good. Go ahead. So we all have to pay taxes, right? I mean, whether we want to admit it or not, whether we love our government or not, we have to pay taxes. That's just part of being an American citizen. One of the cool things, though, is that, you know, some people are not too happy with what our government's doing and what they're doing with money and all of those things. This is another opportunity to say, where else can you give and actually kind of know where your money's going? You know that it's going to private education to help kids, where if you give it to the state, we don't know where it's going. I mean, technically, we're supposed to know, but maybe not. Go ahead to the next one. So we also talked about the corporate tax credit. Again, it's an S or a C corporation. An LLC is not able to participate, which is a lot of the companies in Arizona are LLCs. But if they're an S or a C corporation, they can participate. A corporation cannot recommend a specific student, but they can recommend a school. The minimum donation for S Corps is $5,000, so they have to donate at least $5,000 to this program. There is a statewide cap. So this year the statewide cap was $74 million. And it opens on July 1st and it's open until June 30th. Right now there's about $6 million left of that $74 million. So there's been over $60 million already donated to this program. And so there is a cap that once it's reached, corporations are not able to donate anymore. There's also a disabled displaced. It's called Lexi's Law. That state cap is $5 million. And that cap was reached the first day that it was open, and it normally gets that. We get donations up to $5 million the first day on July 1st. So there's lots of money that's available for disabled students, and also the displaced means that if a child has ever been in the foster care system here in the state of Arizona, even if they've been adopted out or they're back with their families, if they spent one day in the Arizona foster care system, they qualify for the Lexi's Law or disabled and displaced. So how can you get involved? Let's talk about that. First off, solicit donations. Leverage the people that you know. Make a list. You know, people are like, well, I have not lived in the state of Arizona very long, or I don't know very many people. You'd be surprised when you start making a list of who you know. Think about people that you do business with. You know, for the school, for instance, for the corporate, I mean, think about who you bank with, who does your cleaning, who does all of these different corporations that you do business with could be eligible to be able to give to this program. So think about those people. And again, you're not asking them to give anything that's going to hurt them. It's actually going to help. How to ask in person is the best way to do it. And you know, you're really shy, you're nervous, you don't want to talk in front of people specifically. So then the next best way is to send a text or send an email. But communicate this. Social media, that's really, really good. You can share stuff on social media. There's always stuff posted about what the opportunities are and how this works. Share it on social media. It's proven that nobody's afraid to share anything on social media. So you can go ahead and jump in on that one too. Go ahead. So payroll withholdings, like I talked about earlier, this I think is the most important thing that we can talk about today. And I think that this is the best way for you to support your school. You know, you guys may be the best paid teachers in all of the country. I don't know. I don't know what you guys make here, but a lot of times, you know, teachers are like, well, you know, I can't write $1,000 check at the end of the year. I want to help my school, but I can't write that check because Christmas just happened and I don't have extra money laying around. This program allows you to make your full donation throughout the year, and it doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't affect your take-home pay at all. Because what's going to happen is that the payroll company or the school, whoever does your payroll, instead of sending your money, taking it out and sending it to the state, they take it out and they send it to School Choice Arizona. And then at the end of the year, based on whatever amount was taken out throughout the year, you'll get a receipt saying, I've made a donation of $1,100 for the year. I didn't feel it because my take-home pay has been the same this whole time, but now I'm able to take that credit and I'm able to get that back. So this is a great way. I can't say it enough. This is a great way for you guys to pour resources back into your school. You know, and who knows, maybe they'll throw a party for you if you get enough people that sign up or whatever. But this is just a great opportunity for you to give back to your school. You can recommend a student if you like. If you have a student that seems to be your favorite and you want to try to help them stay in school, you know, you as teachers, you know the parents better than anybody, right? And so you know if there's situations in a family where they're facing a financial crisis and they may have to remove their student out of the school. You know, this is a great way for you to be able to come alongside of them. But at the very least, you can recommend the school and they will receive your money dollar for dollar. Does anybody have any questions on that? I hope you're listening to that because this, again, is an opportunity for you to give and make money.